everyone. So today I will be showing you how to knit this baby blanket. As you can see, I am a little bit far into it, but I'm making this video for the first time with knitting because I found this way to be so much easier with knitting. I used to do knitting all the way across, then all the way back, and sometimes my knitting would go a little bit haywire. But this is perfect because it will be completely unified. I won't have to worry about skipping any stitchings or anything like that. It will be the way I want it. So this is a baby blanket, and as you can see, there's a different pattern as you go along. You start at what would be one of the corners. This is my cast on leftover, and the cast on was 6 stitches. I will show you how to do cast on in just a moment. And it's very simple. You're probably wondering, how did it get so large all of a sudden if you're just doing 6 stitches? Well, I'm not doing 6 stitches all the time. Every single row that makes up to this point had an increased stitch on the 3rd stitching. This is an increased stitch. So you'll notice that these are looped while this one is just an arch, and then it goes back to loop. So each time I did that, which when starting with 6, the next row would have been 7, then 8, then 9, then 10, then 11, and all the way up to where I am now, which is I'm at 46 stitches across, and this is my 43rd row, okay? So yours should look like that, maybe different color or a different type of yarn, but it will look like a triangle pretty much. So casting on, there's a couple different ways to cast on. There's the long tail cast on. I did not do that, but a lot of people like long tail cast on. You have to make sure though that you have an extra amount of tail. And I can show you long cast on in a future video if you wish. But I'm gonna show you the way that I cast it on today. So I like to have a little bit of tail regardless. So I take about this much, and then some people like to wind it around. I just sort of like the freedom of doing it myself. And if I make a mistake, that makes the piece all the more better, because to me it's a symbolic message to the baby that nothing is perfect, and the imperfections is what makes us unique. So sometimes I do mess up just a wee bit on the blanket due to either tired or sloppiness or getting in the zone, what have you. But I let those imperfections sort of go, as it was meant to be an imperfection, because nothing's perfect. So for cast on, there's a couple of ways. I like to do 2 loops across my finger, and then I take this one, pull it over. Sorry, it's a little hard to show, I know. Pull it over, so 1, 2, this is my tail cast on, okay, and 3. And what you'll do is you're gonna take the 1, go over, then go over again, so you can make a slip knot. Why a slip knot? Well, so that way, if it's not where you want it, or you want it bigger, you want it looser, you want it tighter, you can easily loosen it up or tighten it up. I like mine tight. So I always like to have my cast on tail, which is not connected to the ball, towards the back. Reason being, it will mess you up if you start casting with that tail. You might want to just leave it towards the back, so that way later on you can weave it in. Now you can just do this, or for the other cast on numbers. Or you can go like this. And yes, I'm doing it with my right side. It's can be either side really, but just remember which side you're on. So I'm gonna start with my left. So this is a stitch. The slip knot's one stitch. This is going to be a second stitch. There's the second stitch. Okay, and I just take my needle. It's a little hard to see, I know. Sorry folks, my first time doing this. I just take my needle and I slip it in the back of the yarn here, loop the yarn around, go down, pull, and then take this needle and sweep it up. I'll do that again. Take this needle, and yeah, these ones are longer. They're meant for like sweaters or stockings or things like that. But if you're doing a blanket, I highly recommend that you get the ones with cables. Yeah, it can be a little daunting, but it will help you in the long run because your piece will get large and it will start to fall off the needles. And what better way to keep it all together still than having a noodle between it to keep it from falling apart. So I'm gonna do 6 stitches and then I'll show you an increased stitch for the next rows in a moment. So for my blanket, I started with 6 stitches. These are 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I did 3 rows of the 6 stitches. So I'm gonna just speed this up, sorry friends. And each time you do a row, you'll just pop that off right there instead of switch it like you did for the cast on. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So that's my second row because my first row was my cast on row. I'm gonna go fix this up a little so that way you can see. So now you should have a tiny thin row beneath. Okay, and you'll do it again because that was row 2. I need 3 rows. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whoops. And that is why you want to pay attention, especially if you're a beginner. But even when you're not, I tend to sometimes get distracted. So I try to focus. This is something that needs focus. So you'll see here, and I'll point it out, we've got our first row. And this is my tail side. This is my one that's connected to the ball. We've got 1, 2, and that's the 3rd row. Now I'm gonna show you how to do the extension. So for this blanket, you're gonna knit like you did before. 1, 2, see if I can zoom up here, 3. Now, before you go to the 4th knit, you're gonna take your string that's connected to your ball. You're gonna put it in front, so bring it towards you. Take your needle and put it down in like before as if you were going to do another knit, only this time you have this extra string, so you're seeing technically 1, 2, 3, and this is the loose string that you brought in front, which you're now going to wrap around that needle to make 4 and 5. So now you have 5 stitches. You're gonna knit the rest to the end. 6, oh look at that. Now we have an extra stitch because I had 6 and now I have 7. Flip it around. This is called flip knitting. When you flip your piece. So knit, 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 1, 2, 3. And that 3 knit pattern that I do is because it will create that border for my blanket, which I'll show you on my bigger swatch piece that I've been working on, which is the actual blanket that I'm making for a friend who's having a baby. Don't forget to take that string that was behind, loop it around that needle, okay? Tuck in to what would have been the next knit, loop around, pull it down through. Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Whoops. So as you do this, you're gonna gradually see that it's extending outward. And I'm using a thicker yarn, so if you don't like thicker, you can always go thin, you can go frilly, you can go with wool, cotton, whatever blend you want. The acrylic mixes, whatever. But this is what I was working with. So I like this because it's like a nice soft baby suede kind of thing. So it'll start to extend outward as you increase. I'll show you decrease when I get to that, but I have 129 stitches till I get to that, which means I have to at least have well over 126 rows. So let me show you that pattern real quick for the border that I told you about. And you can get these kind of needles anywhere. I got them from wish.com, and they come in different cable sizes. So if you really want to make a really, really big blanket, sure, you can go with the like 124-inch cable extension, but it's not necessary unless you really want to make the world's largest blanket. But good luck with that, especially if you have really, really thin yarn. It'll take you years. So this is the section of the baby blanket. Now, I'm gonna try and show you the best I can. You know, this camera on my phone is not that great. So the 3 stitches that were across are right here. 1, 2, 3. And then you'll notice that after that, there's the big pattern holes. That's when we did our increases. So located on both sides, you'll see those big holes. And then we have our ribbing stitch from our flick knitting style, okay? I will tune you guys back in once I've completed at least going through this whole ball. You will go through one whole ball of yarn. I'll show you how to connect another ball of yarn when you run low or run out of the yarn from your first ball. So stay tuned, and thanks for joining Knitting with Cindy.